Boomers way. Here comes Dayden. Scramble. Tigers. Alex Twirl. Alex Twirl has ended up with a ball. Oh no. Unbelievable. One small step for man. One giant leap for Alex Twirl.
Welcome to the ultimate super coach and fantasy sports show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Insight NRL show, brought to you by the Insight Podcast Network. We are live for the Sunday sesh to talk through all things round 24 of NRL SuperCoach. Bit of a bludger of a week from me, but we'll push on. The show is sponsored by the Standard Squeeze, helping you drink responsibly and conveniently. And I'm the SuperCoach Brain, and I'm riding solo. You'll notice it's just me. I've got a bit of solo podcasting catch up to do. Maddie's away for the weekend, and I thought I'd pull my weight after being sick all week and him carrying the show. So, guys, hop on with me, have a chat with me, crack a 10. Whatever your drink of choice is, and let's have a chat about round 24, because it was a very interesting one. There's lots going on and some absolute blowout scores this weekend. Blowout scores. So we're starting to see now at the back end of the season which teams are on that run towards the finals and which teams are probably already starting to think about Mad Monday or think about next year. Some very interesting scores out there. From Sheensy's revival, specifically for my team, there wasn't much good to talk about, but we'll talk through it nonetheless, and we'll go through the winners and losers for this round, of course, in round 24. We'll answer all your questions as well, so if you have any questions for me, drop them in the comments. Let me know how you went, first of all, this weekend, and any maybe questions that you have for the week ahead for round 25, because there's 3 weeks left. There's 3 weeks left of NRL SuperCoach for the year, and you want to finish strong. You might be in head-to-head semi-finals next week, and you might want to know how to get a leg up on the competition. You might be hunting that top $1,000 $15 Zinger Burger voucher and some KFC socks, SuperCoach socks, I think it is, and a drink bottle, which, hey, I'm all for it if you can get some free stuff. There's plenty to play for with 3 rounds left, so we'll go through it all. But, guys, before we do, please, if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button on YouTube if you're watching us live tonight. If you are listening on delay, whether it's on your morning drive, if it's on Spotify, if it's on Apple Podcasts, it could be Google Podcasts. I don't know where you get them, but we're everywhere. Please hit that follow button and leave us a review, because it does help us reach more people and get the show out to more people that it might help, especially leading into next year as well. And we've got plenty of cool stuff happening on the Insight Podcast Network coming up in the coming weeks and months. Now, instead of talking you through and just looking at my head for the next 40 minutes, I thought maybe I'll just kind of screen share and see how that goes, because it might be a little bit easier for everybody to get a bit of a gauge on how I went. So I got 1,157 this week. Now, not a great score by any means. A bit disappointing. My bench actually ended up scoring way better than some of the choices I made to pick on field. So you'll see here, I sat Reid Marnie over Cook. It's a bit of a no-brainer. I was always going to do that. I sat Christian Welch, and I reserved Max King instead of Welch, so that cost me 10 points. Joseph Tapani had a bit of a quiet one as well, which was a bit strange, but 42 for him. My 2RF, I did okay. Sat Hudson Young, so kind of glad on that one. That worked out quite well. Nico Hines and Cleary both in the 50s this week, so obviously I don't have Sean Johnson. That's there's a 20-point, I guess, advantage, 25-point advantage there. Munster and Ponga did relatively well, 79 for Ponga. I ended up fading the captaincy on Ponga just to see if I could find an advantage, and it didn't really get me anywhere. Munster with 82. Valence Tavare, obviously I'm not playing him, but big disappointment. Greg Marju this afternoon didn't really kind of score the way I'd like him to. Hamiso has just done nothing for me since I bought him, and I bought him over Jermaine Asako, which it's one of the moves that I'll put in the black book and go, yep, this has probably cost me 200 points. A captain Latrell Mitchell for his 81, which I'm not upset about, but I did sit Ruben Garrick for his 80. So not ideal. Not ideal there at all, but that's okay. It's all part of the game. What we will do is we'll go through and have a look at the scores for the weekend, and we'll do it a little bit differently this week. We'll put the scores up on the screen so everybody can see them, hey? Make it a little bit more viewer-friendly, and we'll go and have a look at some comments before we actually do that, just to get the show rolling. Thomas Radley, thanks for hopping on, mate. Kelso Kill is 12.53. Nice. Above par this week. Yeah, look, I'd say par this week. Is probably around that 12.50 mark. I'm way under, unfortunately. Yeah, I'd say 12.50 is par. If you're around that 12.50 mark, you shouldn't probably see too much green already. Either way, you'll probably stay the same. Flash, yeah, I still don't look the best. Thanks, mate. I never did look the best. I'll admit that from day one. But yeah, it's still recovering. Copped a pretty bad bout of hand, foot, and mouth from my son, who brought it home from daycare, and also some impetigo. So that was lovely of him to bring home both of those for me and my wife as well. So we both copped it. So yeah, had to stay off camera for a week. Otherwise, I would have scared everybody away. Hey, Paul, thanks for hopping on, mate. Christian Fifi ruled out for the next 2 weeks. Is that confirmed? Now, I've seen a couple of different things on this. First of all, Channel 9, I think 9 NRL came out and said that Fifita's going to miss 2 weeks because it was a second instance or a second offence shoulder charge. It was only a grade 1, though. And then what I've seen on other sites are that Fifita can get away, because it is only a grade 1, he can get away with a $3,000 fine and no time missed. So I'm a little bit unsure about what's going to happen there. But look, if he has to go to judiciary and he has to plead, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. So I'm not 100% sure, Christian, but keep an eye out on news, because if Fifita's out, I haven't seen anything on Britton Nickera yet, who copped a shoulder charge right at the back end of the Sharks game, which was bloody fantastic as an owner. Thanks for that. And if you don't hear the sarcasm, then that's a shame, because that's going to hurt me. And then Hopgood, I think, is on report as well. So that's my starting 2RF right there, and probably a lot of other people starting 2RF hurting if we lose all 3 of those this week. I'm in a lot of Barney rubble. Hey, Mark, thanks for hopping on, mate. Luke Roden, 12.40 this week. Flash, 12.85. Now, you don't want full screen, Braino. Phil, you don't want it. Trust me. Not this week anyway, mate. Maybe when I'm looking a little bit better. Mark is hunting the top 100 with 13.51. That's nice, man. That's a really nice score. That's definitely going to see some green arrows this week. Mr. Callio, thanks, mate. Welcome back. Scored 12.50, lost a head-to-head by 45. Look, first of all, head-to-heads aren't done. It's not over yet. You never know what can happen when you wake up in the morning. I've won some very questionable head-to-heads in my time, where I've gone to bed losing by 20 or 30 and woken up winning by 50. You just don't know what the scorers are going to do, and it just seemed like they're on a different planet this afternoon with a couple of the scoring decisions that they made. So I'd probably say there's going to be a few swings, I reckon, and there's going to be some very happy people and some very unhappy people when they wake up in the morning. So hold there. Phil, 12.87. Nice. Good score. Probably a little bit above par. See some green arrows there. Hopefully get a head-to-head win. Brendan, I haven't even had a look at scores, mate, if I'm completely honest. From what I can see in the chat, someone got 1351 for Mark, 1369 for Reynard. Matty got 1323 as well. Big week for Matty. I'm glad he's not here, because he'd fucking rubbed it in my face all evening. Yeah, no problem. Thought I'd need to justify why I look so terrible. J-Dog 1341, nice. Gagai was the man, yes, absolutely. Hopefully somebody took my advice. I don't take my own advice, apparently, but hopefully somebody did in bringing in Dane Gagai last week or the week before, because it was a really nice little pod play there, and I'd say a lot of people are going to be jumping on him again next week. So, all right, and Mark, 1150, fallen off a cliff. Will definitely drop out of the top 1%. Yeah, Mark's had a really good season. It's a shame, man. You had a couple of rough weeks in a row. But still in it, man. Stick around, get that Zinger voucher. It's worth its weight in gold, that KFC. So, all right. Before we tackle these games and talk through these teams, guys, the Standard Squeeze, obviously a major sponsor of the podcast. They bring you the podcast every single week. Use the code INSIGHT15 if you want to get yourself 15% off all of their quality, whether it's merchandise. I tell you what, we just got jumpers from these guys, and their jumpers are incredibly warm. So if you want a really nice, warm, kind of fluffy jumper, hit up the Standard Squeeze. They're actually really affordable too. Use the code INSIGHT15, get yourself 15% off, or you can go and get yourself a 4-in-1, one of these bad boys. You can get yourself the squeeze bottles in the back there that measure out the perfect 30ml shot as well. The guys have got a quality product there, and they're lucky enough to be supporting us. So please go and support them. And it helps you kind of, do some good things when you're on the piss as well. All right. Let's talk through this game one, right? First, firstly, score wise, Penrith 24, Manly 12. I actually thought that Manly played some really good football in this one. I actually thought that there might be an upset on the cards pretty early on, but obviously Penrith just dragged it all back and played some good footy at the back end there. But DCE 96 had a good game, seemed to be in nearly everything, which he has to be for the rest of the year with this lineup. Ruben Garrick 80, I sat him. Makes me sad. I know a lot of people sat him though this week, so I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. But look, logically, he scored like 30, 30, and 7 the last 3 times he played Penrith. So it was the right play. He just had a good game, and full credit to him. So anybody who was stuck on centre wing depth and had to play him, you've had a big dub there. Sipley 79 as well, and then we've got Brian Toto 77, Crichton 76, Taruva 75. Like some really good scores there. Brian Toto just continues to deliver. He continues to score tries, and that is Cleary's right side, preferred right edge. I think Toto is going to be the centre of attention for the run home, and I think the only concern that we have about any of these Penrith assets is going to be whether they end up sitting in round 27. So basically, if you don't want this to happen, and this kind of same thing applies for the Broncos, if you don't want the Broncos or the Panthers to be sitting their players, you'll want them both to continue to win in the lead up because they're on exactly the same amount of points in the ladder. So if they continue to win at the same rate until the end, you'll probably get the most out of round 27, and hopefully we'll see them competing for the minor premiership and a home advantage in the preliminary finals. So let's hope for that. And all of the SuperCoach relevant scores here, we've got Taruva, like I mentioned, he's 75. Some people probably still have him on their bench if they're short on trades. Nathan Cleary only with a 53 this week, and I think everyone is expecting a lot from him. There was 8% of SuperCoaches straight captained him on Thursday night. I thought it was ludicrous. Let me know in the comments if you straight captained Nathan Cleary. I'd love to understand why. From what I understand, a lot of people are doing it because their AE was shit. And I get that. I 100% get that. But I'm going to go with Mark's rule here, and I'm adopting it. I really like it. Never captain on a Thursday night. Just never do it. Thursday night games are bludgers. Absolute bludgers of games. And we've seen it week in, week out. I think I've only had success on a Thursday night straight captain once, and that was Nico Hines at the start of the year. I will never do it again. Because every other time I've done it, even if it's a VC, every other time I've done it, it hasn't worked out for me. So Nathan Cleary, 53, a bit disappointing for him. Sonny Luke, though, 36. Fantastic for those of you that are worried about the AE. Obviously, with the laid out of Mitch Kenny, that gave Sonny Luke a little bit more advantage. And I can't remember the hooker's name that replaced him, the young fella that came in, but he went off for an injury for a little bit, or I think it might have even been a head knock. So he spent a bit of time off, and Sonny Luke got some extra game time. So big dub there for everyone who is stuck with the Sonny Luke AE sitting in their hooker bench. The only other one to mention here is Josh Schuster with a 30. I mean, if you're still stuck with Schuster in the 2RF, I get it. There's probably bigger priorities, bigger issues there. And look, he does have the upside. I'm not saying that Josh Schuster's a bad player per se. I'm just saying that SuperCoach wise, he's rocks and diamonds. He's the perfect example of rocks and diamonds, Josh Schuster.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
And that's the perfect summary, really, for Josh Schuster. So I'm going to do a bit of a pod watch for every single match, every single game. I'm going to try and drag this out and see whether I can get some content together. And we don't have the advantage of having the back and forth with Maddie this week, and usually that makes episodes go twice as long. So I'll do my best to bring in some pod watch for each game. And my first pod is Isaiah Yeo. And Isaiah Yeo, he got 66 this week. He's got a 3-round average before this game of 83. No one is talking about this guy. He's owned by 1.7% of teams in the top 1%. So that's in the top 1,500 teams or so. So if you're around that top 2K, top 3K mark, and you want to have a really big push in the next 3 weeks to get to the top 1K or maybe even higher, maybe he's your ticket. The only issue again is rest. Do Penrith end up getting too far ahead? Do the Broncos lose a game in the next couple? They can't lose next week because they're on the bye, but do they lose in round 26? Who knows? So Isaiah Yeo, really nice pod, and probably my pick of the pods. If you don't have Brian Toto, he's starting to get relatively well owned now. Everyone has Garrick. Amoli Olakau'atu I still like, but look, I'd be jumping on Isaiah Yeo. If you really just want to get spicy and you want to get a bit crazy with it, he's my pick. And I guess the last thing to say on this one is the fact that it is absolutely going to be a Panthers versus Broncos grand final. Unfortunately, that is the reality. These two teams are just standing out far beyond any other team in the competition at the moment, and it's very, very obvious that the two best defensive teams in the competition, they're the two they've let in the least amount of points during the competition. So Panthers are just too good, and the Broncos are playing some incredibly good football. So I'd say that Matty's going to be going to a grand final at some point in the next, how long have we got? 7 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. All right, let's move on to the Sharks and the Titans. I've got to quickly check. No questions, no comments. 13-16 for Crazy Praying Mantis. That's a good score, man. It's above par. Bit of chat happening here. It's actually quite hard to share my screen and try and keep up at the same time. So this is going to be a new little challenge for me. I like it. Yeah, Del, thanks, mate. It's not great to look at my head, but it's nice to be back. I was actually thinking the other day, I'm like, I kind of miss podcasting. I miss talking about the footy or even the NBA. I miss talking about the NBA. I miss kind of having a chat about sport in general. So it's good to be back. Thanks, mate. And yeah, clearly disappointing, Matty. Very unfortunate for those of you that straight captained. But again, look, we weren't hurt too much by captaincy this week. Ponga got 79. Latrell got 81. Munster got 82. Hines got 55 or 58 or something like that. Like we didn't see these massive 130 captaincies unless you captain Nick Meaney. You're a wizard. But look, unless you captain Nick Meaney or you captain one of these massive Ronaldo Mulatalo on a punt or something like that, you didn't get hurt too much by captaincy. So it was the rest of your squad that put together your team score this week. So your depth would have definitely got you where you want to go. Wanted to sell Meaney for weeks, Reynard. Yeah, I completely get that. And maybe CNK being out was a blessing in disguise for Meaney owners being forced into actually playing Meaney this week. So played out beautifully. And Reynard currently in the top 11%, trying to crack top 10%. Good on you, man. Mate, any goal is solid. So, mate, let's crack on into the Sharks versus the Gold Coast Titans. And it was a bit of a thrashing, 36-6. I thought the Titans would probably compete a little bit more in this one than they actually did. Are the Sharks back? 2 wins in a row. They beat the Rabbitohs last week. They've beaten the Titans convincingly this week. Are they back? I don't know. That's questionable. We know that they're a bit of a flat track bully team, aren't they? So do we see them beating Penrith? No. Do we see them beating the Broncos? No. Do I see them beating a top 4 team? Do I see them beating the Melbourne Storm? No. So I don't know whether I see them being back or competitive, but it's good for SuperCoach that they put on a score here because the top scorer is Ronaldo Mulatalo, as we can see on the screen, 110 he's scored, which is great for owners. I think he's only 30% owned by the top 1% of teams now, which is really nice for me. Didn't really help my fucking score this week, but anyway. Jesse Ramian with a 109, Tino, Big Tino with a 105, and Cam McInnes delivers again. Love Cam McInnes. And I know Matty's in the comments and he's going to talk about Cam McInnes. He loves him. Big fan of Cam. And he gets 104 with a try. I'll talk about Cam a little bit later. Tricky Trindle with an 89 and Blake Brayley with an 88. Now, these guys obviously aren't really heavily owned in SuperCoach, so not really worth talking about them too much. But has Trindle cemented that 5'8" position? Is Moylan even going to find his way back into that starting team? Or is he going to be used as a 14 for the rest of the year? So lots of questions to be asked there and not many answers. And Blake Brayley, 88. I know a few people jumped on Blake Brayley as their second bench hooker for the ride home, so you'd be very happy with that. I just don't know whether you're playing him too often. If you've got Harry Grant as your starting hooker, are you playing a second hooker over then playing all of your other options at 2RF? You're probably playing a backup half in Nico or Cleary or SJ. You're probably playing a backup 5'8" in Ponga or Munster or God knows who, Dylan Brown. So yeah, you've got limited options there, and I wouldn't be playing my backup hooker. So hopefully people played him this week for that 88. The SuperCoach relevant guys, Britton Nickero with a 70 there, very well owned. David Fafita also with a 68, very well owned. And Nico Hines with a 55. Usually I don't have to scroll down the screen when I look for Nico's score. It's usually up the top. So 55 for Nico. A bit of a quiet one for him. Now my pod watch, obviously, is going to be Cam McInnes. It's an absolute no-brainer. His last 4 scores have been 95, 89, 69, and 104. And he is owned by 5 teams in the top 1%. In the top 1,500 teams in the competition, he is owned by 5 of them. So those 5 teams are very, very happy teams in the top 1% right now and are probably going to be guaranteed green arrows this week. So well done to them. But hey, Cam McInnes, I've seen much worse options at the 2RF. And if you're looking for a little bit of a pod, there's nothing more pod than a guy that's owned by 5 teams. The Sharks, I guess now we need to look at, do they have good matchups coming up? They've got the Cowboys without Val Holmes next week. Unfortunately, they're going to be traveling up to North Queensland next week. And then they've got Newcastle they've got to travel to as well. So they've got 2 games away the next 2 weeks. Newcastle playing some good footy. The Cowboys, are they competitive without Val Holmes? I don't know. I mean, they're not a bad football team. So I don't think they'll roll over. So this will be a challenge for the Sharks. I know that Cowboys aren't technically... Oh, are they in the top 8? I'm not actually sure. But if they are or aren't, that'll determine how I feel about them. The Cowboys are currently 9th. Okay, so the Sharks are a chance. The Sharks are a chance at knocking them off. And then they finished the year with Canberra at home. So that'll be a nice matchup there to finish the year, and might even be a Nico Hines captaincy in round 27. But it's a slippery slope for the Titans from here. I'm not touching any of the Titans' assets at the moment. I mean, Jaden Campbell's great, but Tino and David Fafita are the only 2 people you should be looking at from this team, because they've just gone and signed long deals. The Titans really have nothing to play for now. They're out of contention of the finals. So it's more now a matter of playing for next year. And they've just locked up their 2 big forwards. So I don't know whether I like taking any of those on, but Tino is massive. So Tino's a great little pod there in front row forward, but Cam McInnes is my pod watch for this game. Guys, what I'll do is I'll try and do my best to get to all of the questions at the end. So any of the questions that you pop through, I'm not ignoring you. I will definitely get to you at the end of the show. We'll do all the questions at once. All right, let's move on to the Broncos versus the Eels. So 54-10, bit of a drubbing. Matty would have liked this one. Dean Mariner, 132. Capewell, 126. Reece Walsh, 123. Some big ones here in this game. Reece Walsh especially, he's a nice little pod there for anybody who took a dive at fullback for him. Dylan Brown got a big downgrade. He was 103 down to 87. And then everybody else from the Eels was putrid. Not really much to talk about. Payne Haas, 64. I mean, you'd be happy with the 64 at front row forward. I just don't know. I think people paid for him at his top price, so you're probably not getting what you wanted in return for him. Adam Reynolds with an 86, Ezra Mann with an 80, and then Billy Walters scored a double with a 77 as well. So some good scores there for the Broncos. And if you do own them, unfortunately, you're going to be without them next week because the Broncos go into the bye for round 25. So it's going to, look, I don't own them. As you can see on the screen, I don't own any of them. So I'm looking forward to next week in a way. And actually, probably I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks because I have 3 trades up my sleeve and I'm probably going to need them with all the suspensions and stuff coming up with these shoulder charges and hip drops and everything. But I'm glad I held some trades because the next 3 weeks could be moving weeks. And I've said it since bloody round 15. The final 3 rounds are going to be as important as the bye rounds. So strap in because there's going to be a fair bit going on there. Jermaine Hopgood only a 41. He got upgraded from 37. Ryan Madison as well, 39. Didn't really do much. Cardi Party has now probably finished with a 37. And the 2 massively underperforming is Gutho, 33, and Mitchell Moses with 11. And Mitchell Moses' regular season is over. Unfortunately, with a fractured jaw, I think it was. So it's a shame for Mitch Moses and a shame for the Eels because he's massive for them. So that's going to hurt them, I think. Look, my pod, I think, and someone to start watching now is Dylan Brown in this one. Like Dylan Brown, 87, is the only guy that looked like doing anything in this game. His base is fantastic. If we look at the stat and how he accumulated his stats, he scored a try and obviously had a try contribution, but look at those tackle numbers. He had 28 tackles. The guy just gets through base work. He had a line break, assist, and he had 17 points in runs. So you know what you're going to get from Dylan Brown. The shame is he's at 810K. And whether that comes up or down a tiny bit, it probably goes down a little bit with his massive break even, but like 810K, I don't know. That's just, I don't know whether I want to pay for that when I'm not going to get anything back in round 27. I'm paying for 2 weeks. I'm paying for around 25, 26. And hey, if you've got 6, 7 trades and you just want to start pulling the trigger, or you've got 6 trades left in the last 3 rounds and you want to you can afford to bring him in for those 2 weeks and then bring him out in the last round, do it. Because I actually think Dylan Brown's a really good option if you've got the trades. It's just a shame that not many people have those trades at the moment. And like I said, look, we won't talk too much about the Broncos because we'll give Matty a big head, but they're genuine contenders this season, I think, with that performance. They made the Eels look like the Tigers. And that's pretty tough to do. The Eels are a pretty good team. They're a very competitive team, and the Broncos made them look like a bloody Jersey flag team. So full credit to the Broncos playing some really good footy. Let's move on to the Rabbitohs and the Dragons. Now, we were probably hoping for a little bit more from these guys. Unfortunately, we didn't get what we paid for. Now, Walker and Latrell both finished on 81, and then AJ and Campbell Graham both finished on 72. All relatively well owned. I mean, the top three are. Campbell Graham, not so much. Tane Milne with the 61 as well as respectable. Keon Kalompungi, 53. Maybe probably want more from what you paid from him. Cam Murray at 48. That's a pretty disappointing score, and I guess it summarises what we've seen from Cam Murray all year, is that he'll go out and he'll score you a try and he'll be great in one game. And then the next game he'll come out and he'll just pass before the line a ton. So yeah, pretty disappointing from Cam Murray if you have him. Damien Cook, 45. Look, I was optimistic about Damien Cook and just thinking maybe there was a chance that he was going to be as good as Harry Grant in the run home. And fuck, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. I just watch Harry Grant and he's just a league above. And looking at it, watching Harry Grant through the bye period, he does go a little bit quiet in the middle of the year. We know this, but he starts and finishes the year very well. And yeah, it's an oversight. And unfortunately, I went with Grant and held that trade and kind of just rode home. And it's cost me a few points for the run home. So anyway, live and learn. But yeah, Damien Cook, 45. Not much to talk about here for the Dragons either. Pretty ordinary. Highest score of 59 with Masuli, and then Tyrell Sloan, 45. Probably the only one worth talking about. Davey Moali with a 24. I wouldn't be upset with a 24 from Davey Moali, if I'm completely honest. I think 24 for an AE. I think anything under 20, you start to panic when you see the teens numbers, but 24 is fine. And I guess the biggest thing to talk about here is that there was no real VC loopable score happening early on anyway, so you don't need to worry about your AE nightmares this week unless you had a late or something and missed it. So, now my pod watch on this one's Campbell Graham, and he's only 10.2% owned at this point in time. He's been putting together some decent scores. I mean, we know how quality he is. Now, Souths are going right as much as they're going left at the moment. I know that they love that sweep, and they've got Latrell going left off Cody and then Latrell to AJ in the corner. They're going to do that forever. As long as that combo is there, they're going to go to the left. But they're going to the right a lot more. And Campbell Graham scoring a try this week, finished with 72. He's always got good base. He's reliable. And you know that he's going to get a ton of ball there because often what you'll find is Lockie Ely is hitting him short and he'll run an unders line. So I do like the way that they draw up plays for Campbell Graham there. You don't see Tane Milne getting the cutout ball too often down that right side. You see them hitting Campbell Graham short on a block play and he just runs straight through. So Campbell Graham, a really nice pod. 10% owned in the top 1% of teams is actually really nice as well. For a player of his quality, the only reason why people aren't jumping on him is because of the round 26 bye. And if you have trades to cover that, like I said on the last, in the Isaiah Yo pod, definitely grab him because I think he's a really nice option and the Rabbits have a couple of good games. All right. Let's quickly tackle some of these comments. We don't have too many, which is great. Sorry, guys. Doesn't make for very good viewing when I'm trying to read through these comments. I just want to make sure that we don't miss too many. But what I will do is talk about what we're doing at Insight. The Insight Podcast Network specifically, because we're doing some good stuff. There's a lot of things happening in the background at the moment, and I'm sure that for anybody close to the pod or whatever, for anybody who has had a fair bit to do with this, you'll know how much time and effort we put in behind the scenes, and we've got a lot of exciting things happening. Specifically, there's daily NBA content flowing out at the moment with Matty G and the team over at Inside NBA, so make sure to go and check out our NBA stuff as well if you're a bit of an NBA head like me. We're starting to roll through 30 team previews at the moment, so you're going to see a team preview drop every day or two, so you can get an understanding of who to draft and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll be doing a lot of mock drafts in the coming weeks as well in the lead up. Still a couple of months until the comp starts, so plenty of content there to make sure that you're ready to take all of your friends' money in the NBA season coming up when you're in your cash comps and your drafts. We're going to also have a ton of free comps coming up and cash comps coming up for the NBA as well. So make sure you jump in the Discord. The link is in the description here if you're watching us on YouTube, or you'll get it on audio as well. So just check the description of the video and you'll be able to find the link for Discord. Jump in, And it'll give you a bit of an understanding of how we do things in there, but also it'll give you some tips and some tricks and some access to us too. NBL content's coming soon as well. So for anybody who missed the announcement, NBL SuperCoach is coming very soon, which is very exciting for us because we've got a couple of NBL heads in the group, and really looking forward to bring you some NBL SuperCoach content from September. So I think NBL starts at the back end of September. So I'd be very surprised if that NBL Supercoach wasn't open to the public very, very soon. So we'll start bringing some content. And I know Matrix is going to be very heavily involved in the NBL and the NBA. Loves his ball. So you'll see plenty of him for NBL and NBA if you're getting involved there. We've also got BBL coming up at the end of the year. As an ex-cricketer, I'll be involved. And Mickey Dell from the AFL, Inside AFL podcast, is going to be co-hosting that one with me. So BBL Supercoach at the end of the year. And look, lastly, we're still filling NFL draft comps at the moment. FPL's just started as well. We've got a total points comp there. We'll be giving prizes out for, thanks to the standard squeeze and a couple of other exciting opportunities we have coming up. So jump in the Discord and you'll get all this info and you'll never miss out on joining any of these leagues. So go and do that. And we've got a very special sponsorship announcement coming very soon. We are lucky to be partnering with someone that I won't give away too much of the details right now, but it'll be able to help our listeners a ton in a very, very tricky time. So we're very excited to announce that one. That'll come out in the next couple of days as well. All right. What have we got here? The questions. Yeah, there's a few red arrows and stuff happening here in the chat, unfortunately. Look, and that's the reality. You're going to have a week where you have a bad week. It is what it is. I've had a stinker of a week, 11:57 for myself, for anybody who missed the start of the pod. So I get it. I definitely get it. And it's hard because when you put in 25 weeks of work, you get to the end of you get to like 2-3 weeks out and you have a bad week. You kind of think, why was I wasting my time? It's all good. You'll definitely be able to come back, and 3 weeks is plenty of time to be able to make your move. And hopefully you're in your head-to-head semifinals because you've got 2 weeks left and you could win yourself some cash if you're in cash comps there too. All right, let's move on to the Tigers and the Warriors. I'm actually a proud Tigers supporter on this one because I feel like we actually played some decent football. First of all, I'm glad that we took our home game to New Zealand. I think that was a good thing to do. No other team's done that this year. So very, we've talked a lot on the pod about the Warriors and what they did through COVID to keep the game going. And I think it's definitely a small thank you to them for what they did. So Tigers taking their home game away to New Zealand. So AFB 98 led the scoring in this one with Dane Laurie also getting 98. He's been playing some good footy lately. And then we've got Harris 87, scored a try, set up a try as well. He was heavily involved in the attacking stats, which was great. Staffatoa 86, and then in the 70s we've got Johnny Bateman, who's still relatively well owned with the 75. Sean Bloor with the 74, who continues to impress every single week. And then we've got Sean Johnson, 73, Mitchie Barnett, 72. So some good scores in this one, 30-22. The Warriors ended up knocking off the Tigers. To stay within 8 of the Warriors in their red-hot form, I'm happy with that. I can definitely live with that, and hopefully that's something to build on into next season. Supercoach relevant scores. We've got Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. He got what did he get? 58. You wouldn't be upset with that, but you probably wanted more with a try, but you know what you're going to get with him. He needs tries to score well. So you're relying on him getting a double to get anywhere near 100. So you know what you're going to get with him. Jackson Ford, also with a 57. He had a nice little update from 49 to 57. And Jareem Buller, what did he finish with? A 47. All notes are completely wrong. So this is going to be fun. Really not much else to talk about on this one. I don't think we're considering any Tigers players for the run home, unfortunately. It's one of those teams where we know that they're thinking about next year already. There's going to be a lot of rotation, a lot of playing around with lineups and things like that. So I don't necessarily want to go near any of these Tigers guys. And with the Warriors, they're a big, big team to be talking about at the moment. And I think that the news on Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad next week will be very, very interesting, because if we find out that he's missing another week, you're going to see a lot of super coaches jumping off. Probably myself included. I don't know whether I can afford to hold him for 2 weeks doing nothing for me. And I will probably take a punt on, actually I'll talk about who I'll take a punt on at the end of the show. But I've got about 3 players in mind on who I might bring in for Charnze. Look, best case scenario, he's named next week and we're all good, but I just don't see it happening. The last time someone had 3 knocks or 3 failed HIAs in a season, they missed the rest of the regular season. So I don't have high hopes for CNK unfortunately. And a lot of people jumped off this week. I can't blame them. It's fair enough. Now, the reason people are talking about the Warriors so much is because on the last 3 weeks, you've got Manly, St. George, and the Dolphins. That's 3 nice matchups. And when we're talking about matchups that defend the right edge, specifically we're talking about Dallin. Manly's left edge defense is very questionable. St. George's is woeful. And the Dolphins is, I'd probably say, nearly as bad as the Dragon. There's some really nice, there's some really nice games there to target for the Warriors, and that's why people are jumping on board. And I don't blame anyone for getting Dallin. I don't blame anyone for getting CNK. I probably wouldn't go and get Rocco Curry or anybody like that, but there are some nice little matchups there. Murata Niokore, some people were looking at on the right edge. So, there are some really nice matchups there, and SJ is at the center of all of that. So, don't blame you for getting any Warriors players. Roosters versus the Dolphins was the next one, 30-14. They ended up winning the Roosters. Hutchison getting 130 is probably the highest score he's ever going to get. Got a double and set up a couple, I think. Nat Butcher with a 95, Keary with a 93. Jared Wallace ended up with an 81, which is a respectable score. Billy Smith with an 80. I swear to God, as soon as I got that guy in, he did nothing. Before I bought him, he was great. After I sold him, he was great. But just when I had him, he averaged fucking 32. So thanks, Billy Smith. And I'd probably speak for the SuperCoach community because everybody traded him out at the same time. So, he's come to life, Billy Smith. 80, Joseph Suaalii, 75, and Joey Manu, 72, Tedesco, 63. Those are probably the SuperCoach relevant scores from the Roosters. The only other one really to mention as we start to slide down the list, there's 3 guys here. We're looking at Connolly Lemuelu with a 34. We're looking at Valence Tafare with a 27. And then we're looking at Jeremy Marshall King with a 21. So Jeremy Marshall King, unfortunately, his season is over. So we're not going to see any more of him this year. And it probably coincides with maybe the Dolphins' finals hopes just dissipating this weekend. So I'd say they're probably just going to put him on ice and make sure he's ready to go next year. So don't blame him. Makes complete sense to me. From this game, I mean, look, Azarko, I wish I got him instead of getting Hammer, but that's all part of the game. It's just how SuperCoach goes, unfortunately. But my pod watch here is Joseph Suaalii. He's got a 5-round average of 70. He's also bashed out a 75 here in this game. He's got Parramatta coming up without Mitchell Moses, and I don't know how much that's going to affect them defensively, but it's definitely going to affect them attackingly. So Parramatta, and we know Parramatta leak points. We saw at the start of the season, they could barely keep out 30 points a game. So then they play the Tigers. We got to remember that, first of all, the left winger for Parramatta is Micah Sevo. I think, is he still suspended? I'm not sure how long he's suspended or when he's due back, but it'll either be Sevo or Simonson maybe. Regardless, I'm more than happy for Suaalii to be jumping over the top of both of those guys. West Tigers, Junior Tupou, his defense and his defensive reads were awful. So he's got a nice match up there, and he's playing against, and he's got Souths who, look, AJ's led in 3 tries in one game this year, so he's 2.7% owned, Joseph Suaalii, and I don't really mind him at all as a bit of a pod play, and spoiler alert, he might be one of the guys I look at to get rid of CNK to. He's got the goal kicking for the Roosters as well, which bodes really well for his SuperCoach scoring. It might get him an extra 10, 12 points maybe per game. So Joseph Suaalii, don't mind it for a nice little run to finish the year. All right. How many more games we got? 2 more. Sunday afternoon games. 2 absolute bollockings. Storm 48, Raiders 2. I don't know what happened here, but I feel like the Raiders got trampled and just played probably some of the worst football I've seen. And I'll tell you what, there were some shithouse games this weekend, but this was up there from the Raiders as one of the worst games of the season that they've played. I can guarantee I can speak for them on that. Nick Meaney, 124. Owners would be rejoicing right now. I know Matrix is one of them. He's a Nick Meaney owner and a very happy one at that with his 124. So good to see him back in the scoring. As a non-owner for myself, I'm not exactly stoked about it, but that's okay. Eli Katoa, a 90, starting to come back into the frame, starting to become part of the conversation now for the run home. So Eli Katoa could be an option. Trent Liero goes over with a try there, a nice little assist from Harry Grant for an 82. Munster with an 82 as well, and Harry Grant with a 79. And Christian Welch with a 60. You'll see there that I sat him as well. So my bench is probably performing better than my actual starting team at the moment. The only real relevant score for Raiders was 53 from Corey Horsburgh. And when I say relevant, people own him. I wouldn't call 53 good by any means. Tarpany underperforming with a 42. Hudson Young, 37, didn't play him. So that was one of the start sits I got right. He might be on my blacklist for next year. Oh, he's done absolutely nothing for me. And since I bought him, I think maybe 5 weeks ago. So I'll own that one. Wasn't the right call, but luckily I got a couple of other ones right. I guess the talking points on this one here, Eli Katoa is a guy we need to be looking at. He's got 90 this week. He's owned by 7 teams in the top 1%. So that is 0.5% ownership for the top 1%. If you're looking to move up the ranks, I would be looking at Eli Katoa. He's sub 500K now. This is a guy that started the season at about 413K, and I think he ended up getting up past 600K at one point, and he was playing some really good football outside Jerome Hughes. And mind you, Jerome Hughes is on fire. He is on fire lately. He's playing some incredible football. So being outside Jerome Hughes is a massive advantage, and we saw that this afternoon. He absolutely decimated the left edge of the Raiders. So have a look at Eli Katoa if you've got some trades. And look, in your 2RF, we need to differentiate. I've got a couple of pods in Hudson Young and Ola Kawatu. I reckon you need 1 or 2 pods in the 2RF, and there are some fantastic options. A lot of people went with Keon Kaloa-Matangi. Why not have a look at Eli Katoa if you get a chance? Because he's starting to put some scores together now, and the Storm is starting to get serious. They're starting to work their way up into finals contention now, and they're starting to make some noise. And I know that they won't lay down, and I know that they won't be resting their players in the run home, and I know that Bellyache's going to want to prove a point. The Storm are coming 4th at the moment, and they're 1 win away from the Warriors, and then also only 1 loss away from dropping back down to 6th. So they've got plenty to play for. Eli Katoa is my pod to watch in this game. But look, I'm really surprised at how the Raiders played. I know I probably said it, but like they've beaten the Storm in Melbourne multiple times. They actually play really good football down at Amy Park. Like I don't understand why they were so bad. Jamal Fogarty had another stinker. He's put together 3 or 4 absolute shitters over the last month and a half. Has some great games, but has some absolute shockers as well. So, yeah, a bit disappointing. If you're a Raiders fan, you probably want to burn the tape on this one. I wouldn't even be doing any tape work. I wouldn't even be doing any film review or anything like that for that game, because you just be pulling your hair out. I know Ricky Stewart's going to give him an absolute flogging in the sheds as well. All right, last game, Knights Bulldogs, 42-6, another drubbing. Look at these scores for the week. 24-12 is okay. Manly played well. Sharks 36-6. Broncos 54-10. And then a couple of close ones, which is okay. Roosters 30-14. I wouldn't call that a flogging, but I definitely wouldn't call it close. And then these 2 games today were just massive smashings, like 48-2 and 42-6. Like we're starting to see the teams now that are coming into the finals and the ones that are thinking about next year. So 42-6 the Knights. I honestly got out of jail by not captaining Ponga. I feel like first of all, I think the majority of his score came from fucking goal kicks. Let's have a look. He scored 28 points in goal kicks alone. And that try assist, mind you, for the 79. If you're an owner or a captainer, I mean, good on you. It's a good captain score, don't get me wrong. But that try assist that he got for the kick through is going to be questionable. I'll be very interested, and I'll be keeping a very close eye on whether the scorers actually downgrade that, because normally they don't give kick ricochets as try assists. They don't count them as try assists if it's ricocheted off a foot or a leg or something. So, yeah, they've given it to him on this one. So very interesting to see whether he holds onto it. But every time he gets the ball, he's so fucking good. It's scary not to captain him. But I ran the gauntlet and I won by 2 points. So go me. Dane Gagai with a 105. Hopefully people jumped on, like I said at the start of the show. Leo Thompson, 80. Ponga, 79. Marnie, 78. Some decent scores in this one, but then it drops off a cliff for the Bulldogs after that 78 from Reid Marnie and that late try. Max King with a 50. Karaz with a 38. Pretty poor. TPJ playing about fucking 7 minutes again, as he normally does, and he got 33. Preston, 37. Kick out 30. Like Burton, 27. There's really nothing good happening for the Bulldogs at the moment. And for the Knights, I don't know if anybody saw Jackson Hastings' ankle injury, but that looked like, I'm not quite sure. It was a questionable whether you call it a hip drop or not based on the way that they worded it. But it looks like Jackson Hastings is going to miss a fair bit of time, unfortunately. So That'll be very interesting to see who they bring in there, whether it's Adam Clune or how far he is away. I think he's injured maybe, or does Lockie Miller reappear at some point now to play at halfback or 5'8" for the rest of the year and Tyson Campbell goes to half? Who knows? But that really hurts them. If this is a significant injury, that hurts the Knights massively, I think, to get rid of an organising halfback like Jackson Hastings. So does that impact Ponga for the final 3 weeks? Who knows? Who knows? I don't think it does too much, but there will be, you'd be lying if you weren't thinking about it. Dom Young with a 59, probably hoping for more from him. Adam Elliott with a 69, pretty decent score. Greg Marju with a 47 was probably the lowest score that he's had in a while as well. So just didn't get any ball out there, and they're almost double teaming him. I think everybody think back to last year when Sifa Talakai just went on that massive run and he got the 150 odd and started scoring tries left, right, and center, and he was dangerous at that point for maybe about 3 or 4 weeks. And then they just started sticking 2 blokes on him. And then everybody either side of him started to score. I mean, Mulatalo had a great end of the year. And then obviously, Wade Graham was not good, but he played some good footy at the back end of the year. I wouldn't say he played good footy, but I'm going to try and work out how to phrase this without making it sound like Wade Graham is good. He was the beneficiary of Talakai getting extra attention. How's that? So, maybe that's happening to Marju. Maybe now Bradman Best, when he's back from injury or whatever, or whoever plays inside of Nari Tuala, might get a little bit more scoring opportunity there if they go short to him rather than the extra attention that Marju is getting. But he still gets through his work. Can't be upset with 47 and no attacking stats. So, talking points on this one, my pod watch for this one is Dom Young. And at 59, not exactly stoked with a 59. I think he got disallowed on a couple of tries. That 59 could have easily been a 110. So if he gets a couple of tries there or gets allowed a couple of tries instead of getting them overturned, could be a very different story. Could be making way more attention. But I like these matchups. He's got Souths next week and he's running at AJ's edge. Decent defensively, him and Isaiah Tass, but not amazing. Then he's got the Sharks, and the Sharks' left edge is quite poor. And then he's playing Dragons in round 27, which could honestly be a massive matchup if you've got a stack of Ponga, Marju, and Young against the Dragons in round 27. The Dragons are playing okay football right now, but I mean, if the Knights have something to play for in round 27 and they're coming up against the Dragons team that are coming second last, like that could be a monster score. So that could be a really nice game to target Dragons versus the Knights in round 27. That's the scores for the week. Obviously, we're going to start talking a lot more about trades and stuff on Tuesday. So keep an eye out for the Tuesday show. Matrix will be back then to have a chat with me through it. And no, I'm not talking about the Broncos any more than I already have. I've given them enough props as it is. Guys, I guess my only kind of thing to talk about from here is what I'm thinking about with trades and a few different options. The only trade decision I have to make is, what do I do with CNK? Where do I trade him? What do I do with him? Now, let's say, for instance, he is named next week. Fine. I don't have to trade him. I don't have to move him at all. And I probably don't make a trade, to be honest. But if he isn't named Tuesday 4 p.m. and we find out that this HIA is going to probably see him through to the end of the regular season, then I've got to look at replacements for him. I can't just leave him there. I've got 3 trades, and this is why I held trades, to be able to move him. So I could get Dom Young. I could get Dane Gagai if I can afford him. I could get DWZ. I could get Suoli'i. And no, I'm not getting Selwyn Cobbo or Dean Mariner, Paddy. But I just have a feeling, I want to target good matchups, and I think Suoli'i has a couple of good matchups coming up. I think Dom Young and Gagai both have really nice matchups coming up, and Gagai is my pick if I can get him, but I think he might be a little bit out of reach now for me. I think he gained too much cash this week. And then DWZ is also another really good option. I think that my only concern with DWZ is the fact that he doesn't have CNK sweeping out the back. And don't get me wrong, Teo Piki is a very good footballer, very talented young kid, but he is not Chance Nickel Clock stat. He doesn't have the big body like Chance. He doesn't attract the attention like CNK does. So I feel like DWZ probably has less opportunity moving forward, and SJ is going to have to do a little bit more work there. But maybe I fade DWZ now, which is a shame. If DWZ would be great to have in my team if CNK is named next week, and I'll probably go that way if he is. But maybe my option is Dom Young. Maybe Dom Young is the guy. So we will see. We'll announce on Tuesday, and obviously, if you're in the Discord, we'll let you know what our trades are, like we always do. Matrix and I always talk to you about our trades and what our thoughts are moving forward every single week in Discord. So jump in the Discord. It's in the description of the YouTube video and also in the description if you're listening on audio. So just click the link. And if you haven't ever used Discord before, don't worry. It's a little bit overwhelming, but we've mapped it out, the whole thing out. Hopefully people can give us a plug on there. And definitely send us, or definitely jump in the Discord. Sorry, got thrown by a question there in the comments. What I will do here is quickly try and tackle some of these questions. There is a ton of comments in here, and I appreciate all these comments coming through. I will do my best to answer them all. I'm going to shuffle all the way back up to the top and see how I go. Yes. So, Mr. Callio, unfortunately, JMK is out, finished, done for the year. They've announced it. Wayne Bennett announced it in the presser that he's finished. He's re-aggravated that AC joint or bursitis injury or whatever they're calling it now. So, unfortunately, he is done for the year. Not everybody knows how to loop. It's probably a good point, Luke. Not everybody knows how to loop. If you loop this week, you're probably missing a trick. You want to loop at 130 or 130 plus, I think, especially if you've got a shit AE. You can probably loop a little bit lower if you don't have any AE nightmares in your team. But yeah, I'd probably be looping above 130. We did a lot of chat around how to loop and stuff in the preseason content, and we'll do that again next year. So you can keep an eye out for that, or just hop in our DMs and we'll talk you through how to do it if you have a situation that you wanted to loop. Christian is asking, is Tarpany to AFB sideways? Love the pod. Thanks, mate. Appreciate the support. I'd say yes. I'd say yes, it is. I mean, look, Tarpany's going to have less attacking opportunities, I think, and the Raiders look fucking terrible. They were spending all their time under their own goalposts. So, yeah, look, if you've got the trades, do it. If you have the trades, pull the trigger. I really don't mind it. The problem with this is that not many people have that trade. So it might be a pod play. Could be a pod play. AFB has way more attacking upside in a really nice draw. He's got a really nice connection with Tohu Harrison, that short ball close to the line. So take it. I'd do that if you have the trades. But if you've got like 4 or less trades, man, I'd just hold Tarpany and just focus elsewhere. Especially if you've got like, maybe even have a look at your matchup next week if you're in a head-to-head semi or something and you've got cash on the line. Have a look at what your opposition team looks like and then maybe make a decision on that. Because if he's already got AFB, you'll need to decide then, is my team good enough and do I need to match AFB or can I still just go with Tarpany as a bit of a pod? Phil just saying that the Eels are turning into a New South Wales Cup team late in the season. Every year like clockwork. Yeah, look, I mean, they made the grand final last year, so we can't really criticise them too much, can we? How good is Hopgood? Yeah, no good. I know Matty traded Hopgood, so another big win, which is probably why Matty got a 13.20. I think 13.23 this week, and I got 11.57. So that's why decisions like that to get rid of Hopgood versus to keep him paid off this week. Crazy Praying Mantis, what are the odds that Tino and Fafita don't see out their contracts? Any bookies willing to lose some money? Fafita, I think Fafita could. It's only a 3-year deal. But Tino getting on a 10-year deal is ludicrous. And I think Jason Taumalolo opened the door for that. So is that a good thing for the Titans? I mean, I know they're trying to wrap up their star front row forward, and I get it. I just don't know whether a 10-year deal is ever worth doing for an organization. You're investing in one player that could go down with it, God knows. Imagine if God forbid, hopefully this never happens, but imagine if Tino went down with like a really bad injury, like a Pappenhausen kneecap kind of injury or whatever, and he's out of the game for 2 years, comes back. Like, you're investing a lot of money in a guy that technically could be out for a long time. Who knows? And hopefully this never happens, but it's just crazy. 10-year deals are insane. Paul with a 1001 this week. Tough. I kind of feel a little bit better saying that. Thanks, Paul. Made my night. Appreciate it. What else have we got here? Sorry to the guys on audio listening to me work my way through these comments. I'll do my best. There's a fair bit of chat here comments here in the chat around specific games. And yes, I didn't actually mention this, but that try that Cody Walker scored, like Latrell and Cody Walker were both offside by about 3 feet. So that was bizarre. I can't believe that the bunker didn't pick that up. What's the point in having a bunker? Say it every single fucking week. Why do we have a bunker when they get decisions wrong every single week? The refereeing is getting worse and worse and worse every single week, and it's fucking bizarre how it happens when they've got all the technology. Just bring back your 2 refs on field, get rid of the bunker, blow the place up, and then, you probably enjoy your footy a lot more. I could accept a decision, personally, if we didn't have a replay and we didn't slow it down to fucking microseconds and frame by frame. I could just accept it. If he went out or had a foot on the line or whatever, fair enough. Like, we're not expecting these referees on field to be superhuman. But the problem is now we've got all this technology. We're slowing things down and we're looking at things in much more depth than we ever would before. And it's ruining the game. So that's my piece. That's my piece on it. Phil's keen for NBL SuperCoach. Yep, we are too. And Maddie's talking about NBL already in the chat, which is great. We've got a few NBL fans in the chat, which is fantastic. Tigers were competitive. They were this weekend. And so Crazy Praying Mantis mentioning here that Laurie's not a fullback, and it only took until he signed elsewhere for them to figure it out. This is what we do at the Tigers, mate. This is what we do. We wait until players want to leave, and then they do leave and they sign elsewhere, and then they become amazing. We're a breeding farm for everybody else. Tyler, if you're still here, mate, and listening, par this week, probably 1250, I reckon. There's some decent scores in 1300s up there this week, but I'm seeing a lot of 1100 to early 1200 scores, so I reckon 1225 to 1250 could be par. Maybe even less. And he got 1362, so that's massive. Craig asking, what do we think about Grant starting off the bench as a one-off? I don't think... I wrote on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter at SC_brain, but I put on Twitter that I was actually a little bit more nervous about Harry Grant coming off the bench and starting off the bench than I am when he starts. I just feel like when he comes onto the field after 20, 25 minutes, that's usually around the time where your forwards are starting to get tired. So if you get a 5-minute stint there with a tired forwards and you've got a fresh Harry Grant running around the ruck, that's dangerous as fuck. So for me, I was nervous about that. And look, he scored 79. So he did the same as what he probably would have done starting. I don't know whether he would have done too much more in the first 20 minutes or so, aside from make a few tackles and pass the ball out of dummy half. So I don't mind it. Who to prioritise? J-Dog's asking, out of CNK if he's playing, Joey Manu or Tino? Well, CNK and Manu are much more higher owned. Tino is less owned. I think he's about maybe 15% owned. If you got the money, I'd be... Oh, fuck. Actually, this is a bit of a tough one because, look, Tino doesn't really have anything to play for now. He's got his nice contract signed. The Titans have 3 more games before they get to go and get on the piss and do Mad Monday and have a nice holiday in Bali or whatever it is they do in the off-season. If CNK is playing, I'm probably prioritising CNK, considering I went Manu to CNK, last week or the week before. Didn't work, but I still think CNK is a better option if he is playing. Plenty of metrics. Give me a love heart if you hate Billy Smith, and we've got about 5 or 6 people love hearting in the chat, which is fantastic. I love the moral support of the Billy Smith hate club. Nothing against the bloke, just a super coach player who absolutely rorted us all this year. Mark should have taken his own advice on Katoa as a pod with Hughes back. Hey, man, it's not too late. You still got 3 weeks. Could be a good play. I don't mind it. Jerome Hughes could also be a nice play. It's just a shame that he's halfback only. He always will be halfback only. So not really a consideration or an option there. Luke Roden asking Hopgood to Eli Katoa. Hopgood has the Panthers and then the bye. I love that. I actually really like that move. I think Hopgood is if you don't have any other problems in your squad right now, Hopgood could be the perfect trade out. The worst thing that happens is he goes and gets his averages 60 or 70, but I'd be looking at some upside guys now that can score tries. And I know that Hopgood scored 3 tries this year, but it's 3 tries. Eli Katoa could put on 3 tries in the final 3 games at playing outside Eli Katoa. Playing outside Jerome Hughes, sorry. So I like that move. I approve of it. Absolutely. We'll see what Matrix thinks in the chat if he's still here. I'm not talking about the Broncos. Here's a question to all the listeners. So Paul's asking, is this podcast worth listening to? Leave a comment and leaving comments and asking questions. If you answered yes to any of the above, support the podcast and hit the like. I appreciate that, man. And look, I'm sure Paul understands it as much as anybody else, but for us to be able to grow the podcast, for us to be able to reach more people, it does help when you like it. It does help when you share it. It does help when you comment. It does help when you engage, when you watch all the videos. When And especially when you subscribe, you'll never miss future videos, but it does help reach. So if you do like the podcast, we really, first of all, you don't have to do anything. We really do appreciate your support and just hopping on live. But if you do want to support us, hit subscribe, hit like, share it with your mate who might be a SuperCoach guy, and help us reach more people. We would appreciate that if you like it. All right. Head-to-head question from J-Dog. Trade Haas-Tino this coming week with the Broncos on the bye. Look, if it's a do or die final, or it should be, you're in the semi-final. So if you're in the semi-final, there's cash on the line or you want to win, I don't mind that move. I actually probably would do that if I didn't have any other problems in my squad. I have a feeling I'm going to have a couple of problems I'm going to have to deal with this coming week. C&K is going to be one of them, and then maybe a 2RF that might get suspended, whether that's Nikora, whether that's bloody David Fafita, whether it's Hopgood, who knows. But if you don't have any other issues, Haas-Tino is a fantastic trade if you can make that cash work, for sure. Cowboys had that issue with Michael Morgan retiring into a 10-year contract as well. Yeah, so that was very, very recent after he won that grand final, and the poor guy was a quality player, but Oh, Tyler, yep, you got it. Cool, sweet. Blow up the bunker, absolutely. So, sorry, I'm just catching up on the latest comments here at the moment, but I'm good to see that some people are supporting me when we're talking about blowing up the bunker and just letting the referees do the job. Tyler, does Trell or Ponga go big against each other this next week? Yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup, isn't it? I probably won't be captaining either of them personally. I don't know whether they cancel each other out. I'd feel less confident about Ponga going big against the Rabbitohs compared to Latrell going big against the Knights, if that helps you. And yeah, look, Ponga, he sat for the last 10 minutes of the game, but that's not really going to make too much difference into next week. I don't think an extra 10 minutes won't mean he's fresh at all. I think I would rather back Trell against the Knights than I would back Ponga against the Rabbitohs, personally. That's me. But we'll see. That'll probably be my famous last words. And would I look at Teddy? Mr. Caliero is asking. Yes. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. I just find that there's so many good options at fullback. I know we're not looking at Reece Walsh for next week because the Broncos are on the bye, but fuck, man, they've got a decent run. I don't mind it. I don't mind Teddy. And obviously Gutho's now shit in the bed and he's going to have to do nearly everything. Gutho's going to get the kicking back though. So there's one advantage if you are a Gutho owner. I'd probably hold Gutho because he's going to get heavily involved and he's also going to have the goal kicking. Whether they can score points or not, that's another question. But I do like Teddy. I just don't know whether he'd be in the top two fullbacks that I would look at bringing in personally. I must have missed a question. Sorry, Phil. What damage do these late season games do to the rookie pricing of Ethan Strange? Yeah, massive. Because he's going to get a few games under his belt and he's going to be priced at a fucking... What did he get? I missed his... I didn't review his score very well, did I? For anybody in the chat who wants to beat me to it, I'm going to quickly check. If we go to the Raiders game... Strange. What did he get? 17. Fuck. It could be good for him. Personally, this could be fantastic. If he only got 17. I mean, the concern for me is Dean Mariner, because Dean Mariner was going to be a juicy option for me. He was going to be someone that I would have been looking at in round 1, 2024. He would have flew under the radar with the pricing. He would have probably been sub 300k because he didn't play that much and didn't score that well. And now he's getting these games at the back end of the year because Corey Oates is out and Jesse Arthurs is also out. So Dean Mariner, unfortunately, now his price is going to get pumped up with all these big hundreds and stuff, and he's probably going to be 500, 550k to start the year. So what Phil's asking is, when we're starting to see these rookies that are starting to be blooded into teams, these would have been really good. They would have been fantastic pickups at the start of the season next year, and they would have been 200k rookies because they hadn't played any NRL. Now, unfortunately, they're going to play NRL. They might even be playing some good football and they might get some good SuperCoach scores in the final month of the year. And then they'll get priced at an average of 40, 45, 50, which could end up being closer to 400 to 500k. So, unfortunately, we are getting a bit of a kick in the dick with all these rookies coming in at the back end. But look, there's still going to be some more rookies popping up. There's going to be guys from New South Wales Cup that are going to get a gig next year. Mariner was going to be 90% owned. You're spot on. Dean Mariner was the one that I've been looking at for so long, but I tell you who else I'm fucking very excited about, and we need to start thinking about this now, is these guys that have gone through season-ending injuries and had really bad scores. I mean, Angus Crichton is a guy that I'm looking at for next year. He will be probably around the 400K mark to start the year next year based on his average and the amount of games that he played. Like, it's these guys now we can start thinking about next time. And we can start thinking about, who are we going to pick up at a massive discount? And Angus Crichton is probably number one on my list if he gets the starting edge role at the Roosters next year and the Roosters don't look putrid, because they look pretty ordinary so far. That's it from me. An hour 5 by myself. How about that? Get carried away a little bit. Guys, that'll do us for tonight. Sunday Sesh all done and dusted. Thanks for joining me as well. I really appreciate all the support, everybody hopping on, getting involved in the chat, asking questions. Hopefully I didn't miss any, and if I did miss your question, just repost the comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and I'll do my best to answer for you. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't, hit subscribe, hit like, follow us if you're listening to us on audio. Join the Discord in the description as well, and have a chat with us in there. Otherwise, I'm the SuperCoach Brain. You've been listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. Catch you later.